Alright, well, we just watched that short video on differentiated instruction, but before that I asked you to have 2 sticky notes with your group and talk about what differentiation instruction, what you think it is. So would each group share what they thought that differentiated instruction is? Start with this group.
So you're looking at me. So for what it is, it's basically instruction that meets the learners where they're at. So you are basically taking your lesson down to meet their needs or extending it up to meet where the student is educationally in whatever subject it is.
Okay, thank you. And this table?
We wrote meeting the needs of all learners, providing opportunities for each student to learn in their element.
Awesome, thank you very much. And as we're going to see, I am obviously Shelby Slate, and we're going to be talking about differentiated instruction today. And y'all pretty much, both groups hit the nail on the head. Differentiated instruction means tailoring instruction to meet the individual needs of students. Tailoring instruction can include content, process, products, or the learning environment. It requires teaching the same content, but in a variety of different ways. So then I asked y'all on the other sticky note if y'all could share some ways that y'all do that right now in your classroom. Do y'all have any ideas of what you do right now in your classroom?
Sure. I said that in 2nd grade for math right now we're learning place value, and some are still at double-digit numbers and strengthening in that, so they use that. Some use triple digit, and those that are able, we're only supposed to go up to 1200, but I've let them go up any 4-digit number.
Yeah, and that's a great example. I, as a math teacher, obviously, and we talked about this kind of yesterday in Bobcat Talks, and how we're meeting the needs of all students, how we need, SPA's looking for growth this year, you know, so even though our high kids scored what they're supposed to do, did they go higher? And they were asking, well, how are you getting those needs? And I was saying, exactly, Study Island, like I've already had some students meet all the 5th grade, you know, so now I'm teaching that group how to do 6th grade, where at the same time, if we're doing place value, my struggling students, even though if we're doing place value, I'm going down a level, you know, building on those blocks. What about this group?
One of the things that I'm doing this year, because we have the 40-book challenge, is we're doing journal writing. So when they have to do 1 journal a week to me, so they write me a letter about their book, and they have certain things that they have to put in there. But you know, you have your SPED kids who write 1 or 2 sentences, but I can still understand whether or not they're understanding the book, and then you have your other kids who write me a page. So
Which I think reading and writing has a huge differentiation, and we're going to see that today. So good job. Today we're going to talk about the Big 4, and the Big 4 is saying that you can differentiate the content, the process, the products, and then the learning environment. So we're going to talk about each one of those in detail, and then give some examples for you to how you can implement that in your classroom. So the first one is content. And the definition of content is our legally mandated curriculum, including all the skills and content knowledge students are supposed to learn. So obviously in Texas we have our TEKS. We have to teach our students those specific TEKS. But like we kind of mentioned, if those students know that TEK, the higher ones, they can go further with it, you know, do something, and then the ones that are struggling go down. We're actually learning order of operations this week, and so, well, we started yesterday. And so when I'm starting this, they say different ways that you can do it is Bloom's taxonomy. So this is obviously starting at the bottom, you know, and working our way up. I'm getting my, you know, lower students to remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you know, get the order, get the understanding of it. Whereas my higher kids, they can create something. You know, on the way out, that's how I kind of try to incorporate my critical writing, is a lot of times I'll give them index cards and they write something on the way out the door. So today I said, okay, well, for your ticket out the door, you're going to create your own order of operations. You know, and my higher students especially really liked it. I end up having word problems, which I didn't even ask for. So you can really see how they're understanding that for the content. Some examples are, for math, task cards. You can have different levels of those. But then obviously there's a lot of reading examples. We know that you can have different variety of reading levels, obviously. And then use spelling or vocabulary list at readiness levels. Last week I went to the DEIC meeting at the admin building, and parents are invited to that as well. And so my group, we were split up and we were talking about different things, and it was kind of talking about this as well. And the parent said she has a GT student, and that GT student learns the words the first day, like already knows how to spell them, and didn't feel like her child was getting challenged, you know. And so she said she asked the teacher, can I have a different list? And that teacher was like, no, this is just what they need to do now. But I mean, that is a good way to differentiate. Give those kids that know that, you know, a harder list, and at the same time, the kids that are struggling, make modifications for that as well. Use spelling your book, and then read a passage of text and answer related questions. We all have those different passages that are higher lexile levels and lower as well. So after content, another way you can differentiate is by the process. And this is the way, the many ways in which our students learn the curriculum. So how do they get there? How do they get that knowledge? A big way about this is how do you have your students work? Are they working in pairs, small groups, or individually? I mean, it just depends on some of the students. I have to teach, I mean, like we all do, pretty much a new TIC a day, so I feel like I'm going so fast. So I like to teach a lesson, and then I like them to be pairs, because I tell them 2 pairs. I like y'all both have to have the work, you know, but you have to, they can say, well, I got B, I got C, why? So then they're having that talking point. But then some students just don't work well with others, you know, and so sometimes they can work with pairs at the same time. Others can work individually. I give them a lot of say in that. Students have preferred learning styles. We all know that some kids are visual, some are auditory, kinesthetic, verbal, how that they learn best. And so some process examples would be, for visual and word learners, they like textbooks. There's some students that like to look and see in the textbooks. Allow auditory learners to listen to audiobooks. Give kinesthetic learners the opportunity to complete an interactive assignment online, or give students varying lengths of time to complete an assignment. And so at the beginning, I mean, a lot of these that are mentioned, y'all already mentioned that y'all are doing in your classrooms. So we have the content, the process, and then we have the products. How are your students portraying like what they have learned? And so how students prove that they've learned the content. This could be assigned on the learning style a student prefers. It can be seen in many different forms. We know you can give tests, you can give projects, reports. How a student presents something that they've learned can come in many different ways. So that's products and some product examples. Students could create their own product assignments as long as the assignments contain the required elements. So in that video we watched at the beginning, when the teacher asked them, they're all right about a natural disaster, which one would be the worst and why, and they said that one student really didn't want to write about that, but he was huge into football. Well, why is your team the best football team? You know, he's still going to have to make an argument point, but it's something about, you know, what he prefers. So that's one way you could differentiate. Read and write learners could write a book report. Visual learners could create a graphic organizer. Auditory learners could give an oral report, and kinesthetic learners could build a diorama. So it's mainly just giving our students different ways that, that they prefer to show you really what they know. And the last main piece that comes into differentiation is the learning environment and how important it is, the classroom configurations that provide the best opportunities for students to learn. This includes both physical and psychological elements. So how your room is set up, you know, a lot of times if a kid gets distracted easily, then obviously you might need something else. Physical should support individual and group work. So like I said, if they want individual, but then you can also have group, you know, the desk grouped. And then the psychological is classroom management techniques should support a safe and supporting learning environment. And that's something we've talked a lot at Bayshore this year about, having that safe and secure learning environment, so that they know they're okay to take chances and work the best that they can. These are some examples to set clear guidelines. When you differentiate, if you have a lot of different projects going on, or some kids doing this and that, they still have to know the guidelines exist and how to make the classroom run smoothly. Have places to work with no distractions for those students who prefer that way, and have places to work that invite students to collaborate in a group setting. Help students understand that some students learn best by sitting, while other learns best by moving. I know we all have that one student who, I have him in my back row, who has to be standing up, going like this, and sometimes that's just how they learn. And the other students realize that, and so they just go on with their normal business. And so out of those 4 differentiation ways, there are obviously pros and cons. There's so many pros to it. We have research shows that differentiation is effective for high ability students, because it's going to let those high students get even higher, as well as students with severe disabilities. Once again, it's just doing what you can to have those students show the growth. When students are given more options on how they can learn, they take more responsibility for their own learning. When you give them like a chart, when they finish a book, and you can say, okay, you can write a book report, or you can do a diorama, or you can do all these different ways, and they pick it. When they feel like they have a say in it, they're more likely to work for you than you just saying, here's what you're going to do, and do it. And then when they appear to be more engaged in learning, which lowers the discipline problems, when they really care about the diorama or this or that, they're going to be more engaged, so they're not going to be running around the room and having as many discipline problems. There are cons to it, as we know, and the big one is that it does require more work and during lesson planning, and teachers struggle to find time in their schedule. I mean, we meet with our administrators 1 time every week, that's 1 day, and so that is the hard part. With our conferences and everything else is finding the time. And the learning curve can be steep, and schools can lack resources to help. Obviously, we all know you have high students and low students, so it can be hard to differentiate, but we have to do our best to do it, and I do believe that the pros far outweigh the cons. So that is our differentiation lesson today. And so the last thing I'm going to have you do is the finale. Before you leave today, I'm going to pass out a exit handout, what I like to do. And there's 3 questions, and the questions are, what new facts about differentiated instruction did you learn? How will you use what you learned today in your classroom? And what additional questions do you still have? So thank you very much for being here today. I appreciate it.